At Jersey Mike's, we take great satisfaction in getting that perfect meat slice. Yes. But we don't do it for fun. We do it for fresh. Because Slice to Order makes a sub above.
Hot Tub Factory Outlet is now open in Draper. Don't wait months for your hot tub. Get it now. Enjoy that outdoor deep soaking experience you've been thinking about all year. Whether you have limited space or lots of room, you can have that relaxation you've been wanting today. Shop Utah's newest selection of Viking hot tubs. They're all on display at the beautiful new showroom. Best pricing in Utah and no wait time while supplies last. Hot Tub Factory Outlets at hottubfactoryoutlets.com.
BYU is now ranked number 10 in the nation.
Jet sweep motion. Algier stumbled, regains his balance, and gets to the second level.
They're recognized from coast to coast.
He will score! Touchdown! Tyler Algier!
The Cougars are undefeated and working for a playoff spot. But they've lost 2 quarterbacks in 2 games. Can the number 10 Cougars hold against perennial spoiler Boise State?
We feel confident that Jacob could take over and help us win games as well.
This is KSL Special Extended Pregame Coverage. BYU, Boise State. Here's Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte on Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio.
These two teams will be meeting for the 10th consecutive time in just a few hours down at Lavelle Edwards Stadium. The Broncos have lost 2 in a row to BYU, and they're out for revenge after the beating given a year ago by Zach Wilson and the Cougs, the largest Cougar win in this new rivalry. As the season turns to fall and the leaves turn red, a new Boise State team rolls into Provo, led by first-year coach Andy Avalos. They'll look to spurn and upset, similar to what BYU did back in 2019 on a wet and cold evening, similar to the conditions they'll be facing for today's game later this afternoon. And, Mitch, I'm excited to be on board with you today for extended pregame coverage right here on KSL News Radio.
Yeah, this is exciting times for BYU fans everywhere. We're going to have you covered, getting you ready for all the news and notes for this massive game. BYU, number 10 BYU, and Boise State. We'll obviously discuss the quarterback situation as we're live here on KSL News Radio. So all the latest, we'll keep you up to speed to get you ready for this contest. We'll also be joined by BYU running backs coach Harvey Unga to give you a little bit of offensive personnel discussion and also the running back room because, hey, Tyler Algier, regardless of who the quarterback is, Algier is an elite talent, one of the best running backs in college football, so we catch up with Harvey Unga. Also, the voice of the Broncos, Boise State, Bob Baylor, joins the program coming up around 11:05-ish to get us an insider look at this Boise State team and an uncharacteristic 2-3. It's rare to see Boise State come into a BYU game with a losing record. So we're going to be loaded. We're going to be jam-packed, and you can be part of the program by texting us on the UCCU KSL text line at 57500. Give your score predictions. Interact with us on Twitter. It's going to be a loaded show today, Matt. Cannot wait. Excited to be here.
Of course, the big storyline right now, Mitch, is who exactly for BYU will be under center, calling the plays, making the reads, distributing the football, and that's our top story here on extended pregame coverage. Let's dive into it a little further, Mitch. Jaron Hall started the season at that starting quarterback position. He went down with an injury after the Arizona State game. It was kind of a scary tackle as they were trying to put the game away against the Sun Devils. And then Baylor Romney comes in against South Florida, plays exceptional, does the same in the first half a week ago against Utah State, but unfortunately goes down with that concussion towards the end of the first half that led to that missed field goal by Jake Oldroyd. And now we find ourselves in a situation where earlier this week, offensive coordinator Aaron Roderick was discussing who is in the mix to be that starting quarterback today against Boise State.
As of right now, nobody's been ruled out. Jacob, Jaron, Baylor, Soljay, all out there getting reps just like always. We have a pretty good system here of giving everybody reps. So far, nobody's been ruled out, and I will say Jaron's closer than Baylor right now. So far, they haven't told me that anybody can't play.
And that was as of Wednesday night when Aaron Roderick said that comment. And I feel pretty confident, Matt, that we're probably not going to see Baylor Romney today.
Right.
Baylor Romney, of course, he suffered a head injury against Utah State. And you look back over the course of the Kalani Sitake era, usually when it comes to head injuries, and they haven't publicly stated the concussion and things like that, but we did see him on the field in Logan with sunglasses on, earplugs in, signs of being in concussion protocol. Usually it's at least 2 weeks. I think that's kind of a rule of thumb. At least you always want to err on the side of caution when it comes to any sort of head injury. And as you just heard, Aaron Roderick even noted that Jaron Hall is closer to returning than Baylor Romney, which then leads us to Jaron Hall, who joined KSL's Unrivaled earlier this week for his weekly check-in in the Players Club with Alex and Scott, and he gave an update on how he's progressing with his injury that he's been dealing with since that Arizona State game a few weeks ago.
Yeah, no, I mean, over the last 2 weeks, I've been pretty good about, taking care of my body still, making sure, my legs are good and I'm ready to go when I get back out there so I can, play as myself. And then other than that, I spent a lot of time with the trainers and, a group of other people outside of that to give me the best chance I can of getting healthy. So it's had pretty much a team working with me this whole time, and it's been great. I'm thankful for all those people that have got me to where I am today, and hopefully be good to play Saturday.
Yeah, that's Jaron Hall. There's optimism that he could play. He has been practicing this week, so there is a chance. We'll find out coming up at kickoff as we get ready for pregame for BYU and Boise State that there's a chance Jaron Hall could give it a go today, either him or freshman Jacob Conover.
I don't love the idea of Jaron Hall giving it a go. If he were healthy, I want Jaron Hall to be the guy because I think that he played well enough in those first 3 games to retain that starting quarterback position. The real unfortunate situation about the BYU quarterback situation is that Baylor Romney won't be available because that would allow Jaron Hall a little bit more time. And what Baylor Romney had done through 6 quarters, Mitch, 80% completion through 6 quarters. Think about that. 80% completion, 5 touchdown passes, threw for 495 yards in those 6 quarters. He was playing lights out football. I mean, it was incredible. And you and I think we've been forthright about this all season long. We didn't give Baylor Romney much of an opportunity to be that starting quarterback. All offseason long, it was Jaron Hall, maybe Jacob Conover. But Baylor Romney was fantastic, and he's just likely not going to be available. So now you're looking at a not 100% Jaron Hall or a 100% Jacob Conover, who was a little shaky in that second half. Granted, he was thrust into a situation where Utah State had some momentum. He needed to take care of the football. Similar situation to Jaron Hall in the second half against Arizona, where it was like, hey, let's just win the football game. So it's a difficult decision, I think, for Aaron Roderick. Do you go with the proven guy in Jaron Hall, who's not 100%, or do you roll Jacob Conover, a highly recruited guy who is inexperienced? It's a difficult decision.
It is. And, Conover, I think, to his credit, early on in that second half against Utah State, I thought he completely looked rattled, but I thought he settled in.
Yeah.
And he was about 5 of 9 for, roughly around, 45 yards or so. I thought Conover did a nice job, all things considered, going into that hostile environment in Logan because that student section, they were rowdy and they were getting after BYU quite a bit last week up in the Cache Valley. So to get that experience, and if he gets a whole week to practice, Conover's been going through preparing with the mindset that he is going to play. I think that it's a situation where I think BYU will not hold anything back because we heard in the offseason that the coaches felt that there's 3 quarterbacks that they feel they can win. And Aaron Roderick even stated that he didn't go conservative with Conover. It was just kind of the situation that they were in last week being up in Logan.
Yeah, and that would be my only concern with Jacob Conover getting the nod today is will Aaron Roderick maintain an aggressive style of play? Because that's what has allowed Tyler Algier, I believe, to have the season he's had, Mitch, because there has been that dual threat ability. They can throw it over the top, which we've seen all season long. They can get underneath with Mason Wake, who's not going to play, but you still have a great stable of tight ends who you can go dink and dunk underneath and then explode over the top, which opens up the running lanes for Tyler Algier. So if it is indeed Jacob Conover, and we're not going to know until probably 90 minutes before when we're looking on the pregame field down at LaVell Edwards Stadium and seeing who's in their warm-ups. So we'll keep an eye on that as soon as we get an indication who the starting quarterback will be. But if it is indeed Jacob Conover, Aaron Roderick needs to stay true to that aggressive nature if they want to allow Tyler Algier and this offense to run the football against a very porous Boise State rush defense.
Yeah, Boise State comes into the game 104th nationally in rush defense, and I think that's got to be music to the ears for Tyler Algier and this BYU offense. I mean, BYU offensively this season hasn't put up the massive numbers that we saw a year ago against the schedule that they faced with Zach Wilson and the COVID-19 year. This team, though, has faced stiffer competition. They've been in some rivalry contests, and I think that the best days are still ahead for this BYU offense. And I think that's what's so exciting about this team right now, Matt, is that they're top 10 and everything's still in front of them. And I don't feel like they've come anywhere close to playing a complete game or playing their best football yet. They're nowhere near their peak, and that's reason for optimism and excitement going forward through what's going to be an exciting schedule. And it obviously continues today, 1:30 kick, BYU and Boise State, where this is extended pregame coverage here on your legacy home of the Cougars, KSL News Radio. We'll take a quick break. We'll talk more about the quarterback situation coming up next. It's BYU versus Boise State extended pregame coverage here on KSL News Radio.
KSL's extended pregame coverage. BYU, Boise State.
59-yard touchdown run, and the Cougars score again.
Listen at 102.7 FM in your car or tell Alexa, play KSL News Radio.
Welcome back into Cougar Sports Saturday extended pregame coverage for BYU and Boise State. And, of course, we're talking quarterbacks, as we don't know who the starting quarterback is going to be. I think we feel safe that Baylor Romney is not going to give it a go with that concussion, being in concussion protocol. So now is Jaren Hall ready to return from injury, or is it the true freshman Jacob Conover? Mitch, what have you been hearing?
Yeah, Jacob Conover, early on, I would have expected that he would have been hands down the starting quarterback for BYU this week, but Jaren Hall has been practicing, and it's leading to a situation where he could be probable potentially for today's game against Boise State. Again, it's gonna we'll find out truly in the pregame, and usually with BYU's pregame setup, they have the first phase of warm-ups where they come out in T-shirt and shorts, team-issued gear, and they go through drills. The last couple of weeks, Jaren Hall hasn't participated in any of that, so that will be a sign early on as to whether or not he's going to try to give it a go. Obviously, that first phase then shifts into they go to the locker room, and then they come back out in their uniforms. And so Jaren Hall, though, the fact that he's practicing, he's been participating and appears to be well on his way to being back and healthy and getting closer to being healthy. And that was something that Aaron Roderick did note, too, this week, is that they are getting closer as a collective group to being healthier rather than being at the end of their rope, as someone said to Aaron Roderick this week. So I think that, if not this week for Jaren Hall, it's, I think, definitely going to be next week. And I think maybe the thought would be, if you're Kalani Sitake and Roderick, hey, he's good enough to play right now. And is Jacob Conover truly ready to take on a rivalry game against Boise State? How much of that factors into the equation as well? I think that BYU would still be able to win this game with Jacob Conover, and Aaron Roderick, made it clear that as far as being conservative, they're not going to be conservative if they do have to go to Jacob Conover.
The game the other night, there was a part of that third quarter there where it was tough sledding. We had three possessions in the third quarter where we went 3 and out. All 3 of those drives, we had a penalty that set us back. And so we were 3rd and 12 on one. We were, got to some bad down and distance situations with a 14-point lead. Our defense was playing great. So I was a little more conservative. It really didn't have anything to do with Jacob. I would have been just as conservative with anybody at quarterback right there. When you're back in your own territory with a 2-score lead and it's 3rd and 12, we're going to hand the ball off and run it. And that's just part of the game.
I got to say, BYU fans, it is comforting to hear that commentary from offensive coordinator Aaron Roderick, because watching the game, Mitch, I thought they were being conservative, and Aaron Roderick makes it clear it wasn't because we were playing a true freshman. It was because of the situation, and there was dropped passes. There were holding calls that got in the way, and so regardless of who's quarterback, it sounds like Aaron Roderick is going to continue to be aggressive in his play calling. We'll take the break here on Cougar Sports Saturday. Extended pregame coverage. We'll continue talking quarterbacks, getting you ready for BYU and Boise State this afternoon. Stay with us here. It's more to go. Extended pregame coverage.
BYU BYU, Boise State.
Makes the catch on the left side, gets in for 6. Touchdown Cougars, touchdown Isaac Rex.
The Cougars put their undefeated record on the line against the Boise State Broncos.
They're going to be excited to come play us. We're expecting their best shot, and I say it all the time, we just need to make sure that they get ours as well.
You're listening to extended pregame coverage. Here's Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte on Utah's legacy home for the Cougars. KSL News Radio.
Yeah, it's game day, Cougar Nation. BYU and Boise State. KSL News Time, 9:37 a.m. We are live on this extended pregame coverage for the Cougars and the Broncos. Coming up a little bit later, we'll be joined by BYU running back coach Harvey Unga to discuss how special of a talent Tyler Algier is. Also, the voice of the Boise State Broncos, Bob Baylor, will get us an update on Boise State. They're banged up, too. BYU pretty banged up as well, but Boise State facing a slew of injuries, too, most notably to their star running back, George Halani, who's a game-time decision. And Mitch Harper, Matt Baiamonte, we're breaking this down. And Matt, BYU right now, 5-0, number 10 in the nation. This is a special team that's playing for quite a bit coming up here to the midway point of the season.
They're playing for, and I don't want to get you guys too hyped up, and I don't want to get too ahead of the curve, Mitch, but they are legitimately playing for a college football berth.
Whoa! You believe it?
I believe it. You look at what's happening in college. Clemson's out of the picture, right?
Yeah.
And Georgia and Alabama are going to remain there, and now the question is, who are the other two? Ohio State's already lost. If Michigan wins out, then they'll be in the mix. If Oklahoma wins out, they'll be in the mix. They'll be playing Texas here in a little bit. That's a big game. There are a lot of moving and shaking in college football that has opened the door for a team like BYU, for a team like Cincinnati, to maybe break into that top 4. And if you really look at the resumes between those two teams, because Cincinnati's ahead of them, they've got the win against Notre Dame, they've got the win on the road against Indiana, but BYU will have 7 Power 5 wins if they run the table. Now, it all starts later today with getting that win against Boise State. And this is the beginning of really, I believe, the toughest stretch of the remaining schedule. You've got Boise State today. Then you're on the road at Baylor, an improved football team. You've got Virginia later this month as well. In between that is a trip to Washington State. They're not very good, but still, that is, and I'm going to include Boise State in this, that's 4 in a row Power 5 quality teams. I know Boise State's not Power 5, but they're of that quality. And so everything is on the table right now for BYU to continue to put together a special season that could seriously, you don't believe it? It could seriously result, Mitch, in being number 4 at the end of the year.
I'm just so jaded after last year, I'm not going to lie.
Well, you can't compare the two. It was a weak schedule, and there were good football teams that they were going to jump. It's not the case this year.
The College Football Playoff Committee, I don't think we'll ever give BYU a chance.
They will this year.
Even though the one thing that's interesting about possibly BYU making a run this year and staying undefeated and pushing the envelope and getting in the national conversation is that they now have the Power 5 label behind them.
Great point.
Not this year, but eventually. Like the Power 5's leagues have
They have it now, though, because even though they're not in the Big 12 now, everyone views them as a Big 12 team.
Yeah.
So it's no longer the independent label's over with. They're now in the halves of college football.
That's the one thing to me, and it's so lame because it has nothing to do with what this team is doing on the field. But I always say this: the talk and the perception is sometimes bigger than the actual results. And when it comes to college football, it's all about the perception.
Yep.
The talking is sometimes bigger than the actual on-field product. It's a sad deal, but that's why we love the sport so much, because there's always these fascinating storylines. And with BYU, the perception has always been, well, you're an outsider looking in, you're independent, you were once a Mountain West team, you've never been part of the halves. Well, now you're part of the halves coming up in 2023, and maybe with this schedule having 7 Power 5 teams, maybe that could give BYU a chance. I'm just so jaded when you got guys like Gary Barta on the College Football Playoff Committee that they will never value BYU. I mean, remember last year, BYU gets a massive win over Boise State. I think we all thought, okay, the path is cleared. BYU's going to the New Year's Six. And then they come out and say, You're number 14. They beat a third-string Boise State quarterback. It really wasn't that good of a win. Like, they'll always find an excuse to knock BYU, in my opinion. I think a lot of Cougar Nation feels that way too. But, man, how awesome would it be if BYU navigates this stretch in October, because this is a stretch that BYU's not used to. This time of the year is usually filled with a bunch of group of 5 teams that the names maybe don't register with the everyday fan. You know Boise State, you know Baylor, you know Virginia. These are great brands. These are great. These
USC.
are good football teams. But BYU could win these games.
Absolutely. On Twitter, KSL Sports, go ahead and vote on our poll. How far can this team go? I think if they get a win today, they can go to the college football playoff. Only 11% of you agree with me. The lion's share of you voting on the KSL Sports Twitter poll are saying New Year's Six bowl game. 80% of you think this team can go to a New Year's Six bowl game. I think, Mitch, this team can get to a New Year's Six bowl game even with a loss. So I think this team has a lot of respect nationally, and with this schedule, I think you can afford a close. Now it has to be against probably not a Boise State, but if it's on the road at Baylor or against USC, I think that could still afford you a New Year's Six bowl game.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, BYU and Cincinnati in the Fiesta Bowl, I would sign me up for that. I guarantee that's probably what's going to happen, right? If BYU goes undefeated and say Cincinnati goes undefeated, those two teams will be ranked 5 and 6
that
in
is
the Fiesta Bowl.
grade A baloney if those two teams get up against each other.
Would you doubt it, though?
No, I wouldn't doubt it, but it's an outrage. Cincinnati should, if they are undefeated, should be – if BYU is not undefeated and Cincinnati is, they got to get in.
Here's the thought. Is BYU better than Cincinnati, you think? Like, Cincinnati beat Notre Dame, and there's not many comparables here with Cincinnati because they're the group of 5 team, and they have a guaranteed access to the New Year's Six Bowl as the highest-ranked team if they win out and take care of business. But both BYU and Cincinnati could be that Cinderella story, the underdog that captures America's hearts, because everyone loves a good underdog, and these two teams could be that. Do you think BYU is maybe better than this Cincinnati team who's going to be a future Big 12 member?
Right now, no, I don't. I think that injuries have been too much of a problem for BYU, that if they were to play Cincinnati, they would lose. Now, if they were healthy, this is the team that beat up Utah, I probably think they would. But as of today, there are just too many injuries, and the foremost injury is the injury to Jaron Hall, Mitch, which we're still trying to figure out who's going to be that starting quarterback. If you are watching ESPN's College Game Day, the official word out of BYU regarding Jaron Hall, game time decision. So It sounds like he's going to give it a go in warm-ups, and then we'll see. But that by any means does not mean that he's going to play and finish the game. So he's not 100%, Mitch.
Yeah, that's worrisome because you want your quarterback to be as close to 100% as possible. I know this time of the year, no one in college football is truly 100%, but BYU is banged up to the point where even Kalani Sitake has said, hey, I don't want to have to dig into my depth any more than I have to already. We've already digged into it enough. And I think that's a notable comment because Kalani's usually always, hey, all right, next man up. We're going to be okay. We got the depth. We got the personnel to do that. This team has taken a massive toll with injuries. We'll get a little bit more deeper into some of the injuries and guys that could possibly be back this week because there is a laundry list of them. But they are getting closer to being at full strength than not. So I think that BYU is a good football team, and I think Cougar fans should enjoy this ride. This Boise State game, though, is a little bit dicey because the Broncos come in with really nothing to lose. I mean, everyone's already kind of writing them off. They're 2-3. This isn't a league game for them, but it's an opportunity where you can knock off a top 10 team and right the ship in year one under Andy Avalos. So it kind of in a way is like that game 2 years ago in 2019 where BYU 2-4, rainy game. You had a backup quarterback. You had expectations were incredibly low, and they found a way to pull off an upset against a nationally ranked undefeated Boise team. The Broncos are looking to return that favor because they've lost the last 2 in this series.
We're getting some texts. We love it. Keep texting us 57500. Here's a question for you, Mitch, and this is in relation to Jaron Hall possibly being available later today, making his return from injury against Boise State. Texter 9849. Thanks for the extended coverage. Hey, we're loving it. So thanks for listening. We're having a blast. But this guy says, at what point do you give your quarterback the green light to run? It seems like the quarterback should only run when the game is on the line. Quarterbacks are more valuable passing. If you run the risk of the quarterback running, the injury rate is too high. So at what point, Mitch, do you think Aaron Roderick would run Jaren Hall if he's able to go?
I'm not designing any runs for Jaren Hall. Not one. You don't let that guy get hit. BYU's got a good offensive line. Even if James Empey and Harris LaChance aren't able to go, this offensive line's good. You saw last week against Utah State, even with some of the backups, this is a good group. I do not design anything for Jaren Hall if he's available to play. He said in the preseason that the designed runs for him are very limited in this playbook. They want to kind of take that Zach Wilson approach where, yes, we know you are an elite athlete and you can run and pop off those big plays like we saw against Arizona, like we saw against Utah, but at the same time, we got to keep you upright. We got to keep you healthy. And Jaren Hall, now the injuries have mounted up for this guy during his BYU career. You don't want to risk that at all. If he does play today, I don't design a single run for him because you also have Tyler Algier in the backfield.
Much more to go here on extended pregame coverage, BYU and Boise State. Matt Baiamonte and Mitch Harper. We're going to be going all morning long as we get you ready for this rivalry game. We'll take the break on the other side. We'll get you up to date on some of the other injuries facing this BYU team, and we'll get to more of your texts. So, more to go here. BYU extended pregame coverage here on KSL News Radio.
KSL's extended pregame coverage. BYU, Boise State.
Tyler shakes off a tackle and gets in for 6. Tyler Algier with a touchdown.
Listen at 102.7 FM in your car or tell Alexa, play KSL News Radio.
Welcome back into extended pregame coverage of BYU and Boise State in just a few hours down at LaVell Edwards Stadium. Bring some jackets, get the ponchos out. Expected rain. Going to be the first real fall weather for a football game that BYU's played in this year. Maybe a little on the chillier side last week in Logan, but this is going to be truly fall football weather this afternoon in Provo, Utah, and we're trying to figure out who's going to be that starting quarterback. Jaren Hall listed as a game-time decision, and it's kind of a mixed feeling out there in Cougar Nation on which way they should go. Texter 7028 says, I would start Conover. I would love Hall as the emergency quarterback because all indications are, Mitch, that Baylor Romney will not be available, so it would go in that situation, Soldier would be the third string, maybe even second string if Hall can't go. Another texter here, 1252. If I had the choice, I'd have Jaren Hall start, but I'm confident that Jacob Conover could still get the W. What would you like to see in a perfect scenario, Mitch? What do you want to see at that quarterback position later today?
I want to see Jaren Hall. I do, even if he's not quite at 100%, because I feel like if you're going to navigate this 3-game stretch against Power 5 teams coming up, you got to get that timing down a little bit for Jaren, because next week's going to maybe be the game of the year for BYU potentially. I don't want to look ahead, and we can look ahead. We can do that. We can see the whole. I don't even know who they're playing next week, like the coaches say. Yeah, come on, give me a break. But I think that if Jaren's got to get some timing back, and if he's 85% and he feels like he can go and he's not going to do any further damage, I want to see Jaren Hall because I think there's a good enough offensive line in front of him to give him the time necessary to keep him upright and keep him healthy. But with that said, I think Jacob Conover, the learning curve's a little bit steeper than I maybe thought coming into the year. But like the texter said on the UCCU KSL text line, I think that BYU can win ball games with Jacob Conover. It just might not be pretty. It might be a deal where you are going more one-dimensional, where you know it's Tyler Algier, and he's talented enough to win the day and get you a big performance. But I want to see Jaren Hall. I do, just because of what's ahead for BYU the next 3 weeks.
So we know about that quarterback situation. That's going to be a game-time decision for Jaren Hall. What are some other injuries, Mitch, that BYU fans should be aware of heading into this rivalry matchup?
Yeah, it's a banged-up group right now, but there's optimism they can get some of these guys back. James Empey, the center, he was out last week. Harris LaChance dealing with an injury that he suffered 2 weeks ago against USF. I think he's a guy that BYU has the luxury to keep out because Campbell Barrington, Aaron Roderick said this week, the guy that replaced LaChance, he Roderick said he is going to be great, being Campbell Barrington. I mean, Brady Christensen told us that.
He was great in that commercial with Jaron Hall,
too.
Was. So.
Mason Wake, he's dealing with a foot injury. Keep an eye on him. Who knows what he ends up being, but probably going to be a game-time decision. Also, Lorenzo Fauatea, he got a little bit banged up against Utah State with a lower back injury. Jacques Wilson got nicked up. And then Jake Oldroyd, he's been a week-by-week deal. Pre-game kind of determines his status. So those are some of the key injuries, personnel-wise, to watch for today's game.
And Jake Oldroyd is one that is really important in my eyes because at some point this year, Mitch, I do believe the game is going to come down to a field goal, and you'll want Jake Oldroyd, I think, in that situation. Even though he missed, the streak was broken last week at Utah State where 16 consecutive makes snapped. I do think even though he has a miss on the year, Jake Oldroyd is that guy. So we'll take the break here. ABC News at the top of the hour, and then more BYU pregame coverage here on the legacy home of the BYU Cougars.
BYU is now ranked number 10 in the nation.
Jet sweep motion. Algier stumbled, regains his balance, and gets to the second level.
They're recognized from coast to coast.
He will score! Touchdown! Tyler Algier!
The Cougars are undefeated and working for a playoff spot. But they've lost 2 quarterbacks in 2 games. Can the number 10 Cougars hold against perennial spoiler Boise State?
We feel confident that Jacob could take over and help us win games as well.
This is KSL Special Extended Pregame Coverage. BYU Boise State. Here's Mitch Harper and Matt Baimonte on Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio.
Welcome back in. Number 10, BYU hosting Boise State. They're on a 2-game winning streak against the Broncos, coming off that thrashing a year ago on the blue turf led by Zach Wilson. And this year's team, Mitch, kind of a different dynamic, being led by that running attack, led by Tyler Algier, and that's probably going to need to propel them again this afternoon.
Yeah, it's going to have to. I think Tyler Algier, he is an incredible talent. I think we're witnessing his final season at BYU because
yeah,
he's a sophomore, but he's been around for 4 years. There's the COVID year and the red shirt and all that. He's an NFL talent, and to me, what I'm seeing is that he is someone that is going to be in the NFL next year. So, yeah, Tyler Algier's got to be a focus for BYU, no doubt about it.
Speaking of running backs, let's get out to the KSL phone line and bring on the running backs coach down at BYU, Harvey Unga. Harvey, thanks for spending some time with us. We appreciate it. We're talking about Tyler Algier, and Harvey, why do you think that Tyler Algier has been able to build upon that breakout year a season ago in 2020?
I mean, I would love to say it's all Tyler. Ty knows this as well as I do. He's got skill line. I don't know if you guys saw the last game, but we had some wide receivers out there handling business in the open field too. And, to me, I think it's a team thing. And I think these guys are so close. It's a tight-knit group of guys. They're all playing for each other. When you have that and the chemistry, as well as, just good players, it's no surprise to me that Tyler's had this kind of success. And, hopefully we can just keep this thing rolling.
What's Tyler's best attribute as a running back, in your opinion?
His vision. He's got elite NFL vision, in my opinion. There's things that he sees between the tackles that I don't think a lot of guys normally see. And to me, that's something like you can kind of like I try to train these guys into running with their eyes and teaching them what to look for on certain runs and stuff. But he, I don't know, there's times where I don't even see things that he saw, and he'll make a cut and it ends up being a huge play, and I'm like, wait, what'd you see right there? Because I didn't see that. But to me, I think that's definitely something that Tyler has, special, and he's unique because of it.
You mentioned that NFL vision, Harvey, and you had a stint in the NFL. Do you believe Tyler is an NFL running back?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. That's a no-brainer for me. I think he's definitely physical attributes, and then just him as a student of the game. I mean, the guy comes prepared every single meeting. Yeah, he treats it like how most of the guys in the pros treat meetings. They'll come ready to go early and ask thought-provoking questions, and he's and he'll come to me, he and Feeney, those two are football junkies, and they'll come to me with, things that they saw and against opponents that's playing, and they'll kind of give their ideas of, hey, I think this run would work, or that run, or this protection should help in this, blitz, or this and that. And to me, that's, like I said, that's next level stuff. When guys start to come to the coaches, just having their input and with what they see, it's something that I think is special, because not a lot of guys do that, at this age and at this level.
Harvey, we're getting ready for kickoff here on Cougar Sports Saturday, countdown to kickoff. If you want, Harvey, you can take the stage here on KSL News Radio. Who's Tyler going to be lining up with at quarterback in that backfield? I'm kidding. You don't have to, but if you'd like, you can, Harvey.
I wish it was me. I feel like I have the best arm of anyone, but honestly, that's a great question. I wish I had the answer. I don't have the answer. And that's completely up to A-Rod and I stay out of that. That's above my pay grade.
Right. So. I hear you there. Let me ask you this though. How nice of a luxury is it though for this offense, regardless of the QB, to have mainstays like Tyler and Lopini in that backfield to assist whoever's going to be either handing off or passing the football?
No, it's a huge, huge blessing. And for me, I'm grateful, because that's one thing that I appreciate about these guys. And I talked to them, since day one last year. I told them, as far as I'm concerned, like, we should be the ones to carry the load every single game. Like, I wholeheartedly believe that was something Coach Reynolds instilled in us when I was here. And it's something that I hope to instill in these guys. Like, I hope we can always take the burden off of every position on offense and hopefully just take any kind of pressure, especially off the quarterbacks. But, we've got a young O-line too, but I challenge these guys to take it on them to make the O-line look great, to protect the quarterback and pass stuff, and then running the ball. I mean, they know the expectation's high, so it's been a huge blessing, and I'm grateful for these guys for that.
Harvey Unga is our guest here on Cougar Sports Saturday pregame leading up to BYU and Boise State. You've only played, really, Tyler and Lopini, and there's been years in the past, Harvey, where you've played 4, 5, 6 running backs. Why have you only played Tyler and Lopini up to this point?
I love the other backs, and I think they're all very capable, and I know they'll be, when the time comes for them to step in the game and get in there and do their thing, I have every little bit of faith that they'll do their thing and handle business. But for now, those Tyler and Feeney have earned the right to be out there and to play. And these guys know, like, you earn every rep, you earn every down that you're out here playing. And Tyler and Feeney have definitely done that. Not to say the other guys haven't, but those two have done. They've done things on a consistent level that have helped them earn that position. And unfortunately, we haven't had any, blowout games to where I felt I was comfortable to bring in, some of those other guys behind them. But they all know that their time will come. But for now, this is the system that I'm in right now, and I trust Feeney and Tyler to handle business, and I fix it if it's not broken,
Yeah. Who would be the next guy if there was an opportunity to get another guy some reps?
Man, that's a good question too. Jesse McChesney, I think, he's definitely earned the opportunity, to be that guy. Super consistent, does what you need, and he's just, in my opinion, he's a phenomenal running back. So McChesney. Shona Finau is another guy. Shona has definitely done, some amazing things in the past to help the program win some big games. But yeah, Folau Rapati, he's another guy too. There's a lot of guys in here that's, it's kind of tough to say, but I think, after those two, if they go down, there's a stable of, 3, 4 guys Even Mason Fakahua, kid's done some great stuff already, and I trust him to go in the game and do things right and get the job done. But it's tough to say. But I think McChesney he's been that, I guess, consistent guy that's I would say would be the next guy up in this matter.
Last thing for you, Harvey, before we let you go, you were, as a player, part of a team that rose up the national rankings, was on top 10 teams. You, as a coach, you were part of the staff last year that took over the nation as a huge storyline. Now you guys are top 10 again. How much of a pressure or distraction can that be, being high in the national rankings?
I wouldn't say there's a lot of pressure. And I say that not to sound conceited or anything like that. I just, whatever ranking we are, it doesn't change the way we prep for a game. It doesn't change the way we game plan. It doesn't change the way we run things around here. It doesn't change the way our meetings go or our practices go. That number, to me, like it has no factor in how we still operate and run things. So what we've done to get here, we're still going to continue to do, regardless whatever rankings may come out and whatever, make, I guess, where we're at in the polls and stuff. And these guys know that too. But I say that to the backs all the time. Like, this is the most important game this week. And every week that we go into, we're going to get everyone's A game because, guys are always looking to knock off the ranked teams or the teams that are, higher. So to us, it's, we accept the challenge, we invite the challenge, and if anything, it helps us and motivates us more than anything, knowing we're going to get every opponent's A game every single week.
Big thanks, Harvey Unga, here on extended pregame coverage of BYU versus Boise State. We appreciate him taking some time to break down the matchup for the Cougars and the Broncos. We're taking a break.
KSL's extended pregame coverage. BYU, Boise State.
59-yard touchdown run, and the Cougars score again.
Listen at 102.7 FM in your car or tell Alexa, play KSL News Radio.
Yeah, listen to the game here on your legacy home of the Cougars, KSL News Radio. Kickoff is set for 1:30. We'll also have in-game coverage on KSLSports.com from LaVelle Edwards Stadium press box. Myself, Matt Baiamonte, producer Dallin Graff will all be on location for BYU and Boise State. Also, KSL 5 TV's Sam Farnsworth, I think, will be at the game as well, too. So, KSL, we've got you covered for all things BYU football. And this is a big game. We just heard on ESPN's College Game Day, the celebrity guest picker, Mark Cuban, the billionaire. It's not often you hear a billionaire give a prediction on a BYU football game. That's kind of cool. Maybe we need to dial up Brian Smith more to give some predictions. But Mark Cuban gave his pick. He was the celebrity guest picker down at the Red River Rivalry. I don't want to say the other term it used to be. But he said BYU, he's going with the Cougs, and he gave some analysis too. He's like, the Cougars, they're going to get it done. They're going to get the rivalry trifecta. So, Cuban, he knows his stuff. This is a rivalry game for BYU today.
Yeah, BYU's won 2 in a row. They're 3-2 in the series at BYU. And this is a series that is in jeopardy now with BYU going to the Big 12. Earlier in the week, the head coach of BYU, Kalani Sitake, had this to say about the future of the series between BYU and Boise State.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I don't know all the details of everything. That's a Tom Homo question. But I really appreciated the consistency in playing Boise every year, and I appreciate their fan base and their program, just the way they do things. I think it's a first class organization, from the university to the athletics department to the football team. So I respect them a bunch, and like I said, we're looking forward to this matchup. But this is a team that we're used to playing against. There's a lot of really good people on that roster that we know and our players are friends with. So it's a we're geographically we're close enough where we know that there's some local people that are there, and like I said, we have players on our team that are good friends with players on their team. So it'll be a lot of fun. They're great coaching staff, and I think they're a dangerous opponent. We need to have all our focus on them and respect the game as much as possible. That means we need to make sure that we show up at our best this Saturday.
Of all the annual games, Mitch, this game against Boise State is the one that I would like to see remain, even on an annual basis. I don't feel that way about the Utah game. I don't feel that way about the Utah State game, but this game I'd love to see played every single year going forward as BYU goes into the Big 12.
Boise State has always just been a great working relationship with BYU. They respect BYU a ton. I mean, heck, they played last year in a pandemic. Boise State didn't need to play BYU, but they wanted to. And I think that might be rewarded by BYU. I think going forward into the Big 12 Conference, you bring up an interesting point about, these annual rivalries and maybe which one does BYU prioritize more. I think from an emotional standpoint, it's got to be the Utah game because there's so much history, and you just see the bickering that still always happens, even right now, back and forth on social media and amongst fan bases at the cooler. Just BYU and Utah conjures up so much emotion. But as far as just the quality of play, Boise State and BYU is a top shelf.
Absolutely. We'll take the break here. News, traffic, and weather coming up next with our man, Mark Jackson. And then the top 5 on the other side. It's extended pregame coverage right here on KSL News Radio.
BYU, Boise State.
Makes the catch on the left side, gets in for 6. Touchdown Cougars, touchdown Isaac Rex.
The Cougars put their undefeated record on the line against the Boise State Broncos.
They're going to be excited to come play us. We're expecting their best shot, and I say it all the time, we just need to make sure that they get ours as well.
You're listening to extended pregame coverage. Here's Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte on Utah's legacy home for the Cougars. KSL News Radio.
We're about 3 hours away from kickoff between BYU, the top 10 ranked Cougars, and Boise State. That's going to be a fierce battle down on LaVell Edwards Stadium. But right now, it's time for a fierce battle between Mitch and myself.
The Cougar Sports Saturday Top 5. Mitch and Matt clash in a weekly battle of BYU sports knowledge. The Cougar Sports Saturday Top 5.
Yeah, it's the top 5, and it's always brought to you by Economics Partners, Utah's premier business evaluation and strategic advisory firm. If you need a business evaluation, contact econpartners.com today. They're BYU MBAs. Check them out at econpartners.com. If you're new to the show, here on Cougar Sports Saturday, every single week we do the top 5. So if you're not familiar with us, this is a weekly fixture every single week around 1:35 p.m., a game show-like setup, and it's always led by our maestro of the top 5, our producer, Dallin Graff, who we welcome in today. Dallin, happy game day to you.
Yeah, happy game day to you, gentlemen. Beautiful day out here. I think it's fun to
Is
be,
it? My
it could be. It could be.
Inclement weather.
Listen, guys, I'm from the Pacific Northwest, so this is home.
So it's a beautiful day for you, but for people who grew up in Utah, this is not ideal.
Listen, I was thinking about it this morning. We don't usually get to do the morning. Usually it's the greenhouse show, right? So maybe not the best gardening weather today, right? So it kind of works out that you got us on board. But top 5 today, we had Harvey Unga a little bit ago talking about the running backs, and we're going to focus on the running backs as that should be the focal point of BYU's
Jamal
offense
Williams,
tonight.
That's the answer.
Well, that's a good guess, right? Because he's pretty much in everything. So the top 5, I'm not going to tell you if he's in it yet, but top 5 today, career rushing touchdowns for BYU. And get this, Tyler Algier started 16 games as a running back for BYU. He has 20 career rushing touchdowns. He's averaging over a touchdown a game in his BYU career, so 20 touchdowns already for Algier. Maybe he goes to the NFL after this season. Maybe he has more, but he could find himself on this list at some point at the end of his career, so that's what we're going to look at. Top 5 in rushing touchdowns for BYU, and we'll start with Matt this week. Where do you want to go with your first? I guess, did you give your first guess
Daddy,
already?
You don't even have to finish the question. Swag Daddy, Jamal Williams, Detroit Lions, let's go, baby.
Yes, those who don't know, if it's a rushing stat, Jamal Williams is up there. He probably has the lead. He's probably, at least he's top 3, top 5. Jamal Williams tied for 3rd here, BYU all-time. 35 rushing touchdowns for the Swag Daddy, as you said. And, he had a couple big years, the 2012, 2016, double-digit touchdowns, 12 in each of those seasons, 35 for his career.
He was amazing at BYU. And you know what I love about guys like Jamal? is that they loved being at BYU because let's not forget, Mitch, Jamal could have left after the suspension. He could have left. He came back, and he's still repping the Y. He had that funny bit with the Detroit Lions where he had a Kalani Sitake T-shirt. So Jamal loves BYU, and BYU should love Jamal Williams like we always have and always will.
Yeah, he gave some incredible life advice. It is what it is, and it is what it ain't, or something. I was like, Jamal, you stay the swag daddy. Swag daddy, hit the end zone, do the swag daddy. Love me some Jamal Williams.
All right, Mitch, you've got the next guess here. Where do you want to go?
I'm going to go with Harvey Unga.
Yeah, the man we just heard from not too long ago. He comes second all-time at BYU. 36 rushing touchdowns for his career, and it really came in 3 seasons, 2007 to 2009. Double-digit rushing touchdowns in each of those years. 13 was his high in 2007. 1,000 yards a year, double-digit touchdowns. I mean, he was, the model of consistency for BYU.
Yeah, he was awesome during that golden era of BYU football under Bronco Mendenhall, 2007 to 2009. So much success in that stretch, and BYU had their own form of the triplets with Max Hall, Harvey Unga, Austin Collie, and then you throw in also Dennis Pitta too at tight end. It was a remarkable offense during that time.
No doubt. All right, Matt, back to you.
This guy had a lot of touchdowns, but didn't play a full 4-year career. But I got to guess him anyways. Doak Walker winner Luke Staley.
Yeah, Luke Staley, number 1 in BYU history in rushing touchdowns, and it really comes, and you mentioned, didn't play, full 4 years, but in 2001, he had 24 rushing touchdowns. So when you have that many in one season, it really helps the numbers. 41 on the career for Luke Staley, so 5 touchdown lead over Harvey Unga there, but 10 touchdowns as a freshman, 7 that sophomore year, and then 24 in 2001, that fantastic BYU team, and the year he won the Doak Walker Award.
Yeah, that's a great pick, Matt, because Luke Staley, I mean, in that 2001 season, he goes for 24 touchdowns in like 11 games. He missed like the New Mexico game. I remember there was some academic thing where they changed his transfer. I'm like, why is he not playing? Why is Luke Staley not playing? And, like Luke Staley, man, that guy, he had an average, I think, like 8 yards a carry that season. Remarkable. Luke Staley was next level. Even like his whole career, though, was plagued by injuries, and that's what derailed his NFL career. But, yeah, Staley was the man.
No doubt. All right, Mitch, back to you. Chance to tie it up here.
Yeah, I'm going to go with, let's see here. I'm going to say Jamal Willis.
All right, we're 4 for 4 here. Well done, gentlemen. Jamal Willis is tied with Jamal Williams for third here. 35 career touchdowns for Jamal Willis. His best season was his final season, 1994, 12 rushing touchdowns that year. Also had 11 in 1992. A guy who played 4 seasons, 91 to 94, was able to rack up some stats there, and those 2 seasons in particular, 92 and 94, his best.
Yeah, you can't argue with what he was able to do. Kind of a little dip coming off after the Ty Detmer era, but still had some memorable moments with Jamal Willis toting the rock. So he definitely belongs on this list.
Well, and he was good friends with Jaron Hall's dad, Kalen Hall, and they formed that backfield, with John Walsh. That was a 94 team, was a top 10 squad. The thing is, Jamal Willis, I love his story, too. He comes to BYU. He wasn't a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but now he's still a BYU guy. Like he does cutback elite now, and you always see him working with, Tyler Algier. You saw him working with Miles Davis. The guy loves BYU through and through. His son Shamon's on the team. Like, it's just a BYU family, and that's why the BYU experience is so impactful, and it resonates with guys like Jamal Willis.
Absolutely. One name left, Matt. Woo-hoo. Chance to win it here. Where do you want to go?
I want to go with a guy that didn't play the position. I'm going to try a quarterback here. My guy down in the Big Easy, Taysom Hill. Oh, let's go.
It seems fitting that Matt gets the win here with his guy, Taysom Hill. Well done. 32 rushing touchdowns for Taysom over his career. The best season for him in rushing touchdowns, 10 in 2013 when he ran for 1,300 yards. And like you said, not a running back, but I mean, like he's one of the best rushers that BYU's had in their history. Clearly, top 5 here in rushing touchdowns.
And if he's healthy, Mitch, for his career, he's number one. I mean, he was just that kind of weapon in the red zone. You still see it with the Saints. He had 2 rushing touchdowns last week in a loss against the Giants. He should be the starting quarterback, just throwing that out there. But what he could have done, we'll talk about this weeks after weeks on the show, but if he was healthy, man, he would be just all-time in the record books.
We're like BYU today, just, 5 up, 5 down. Like,
Rolling.
hey, Dallin's telling us, hey, this is going to be like a Power 5 stretch. 3 straight answers of Power 5 caliber answers. We just burned through that. We're 5-0. We're sitting in the top 10 now. Like, let's extend that thing to 10 answers now.
You guys want the challenge at 10? I don't want to see that. We don't have enough time for that.
That's good stuff, Dallin. Appreciate it. And as always, the top 5 is brought to you by Economic Partners, Utah's premier business valuation and strategic consulting firm. If you need a business valuation, contact econpartners.com.
KSL's extended pregame coverage. BYU, Boise State.
Tyler shakes off a tackle and gets in for 6. Tyler Algier with a touchdown.
Listen at 102.7 FM in your car or tell Alexa, play KSL News Radio.
To extended pregame coverage, the top 10 ranked BYU Cougars hosting Boise State with an opportunity to keep that unbeaten season going. College game day, they all picked BYU to win to move to 6-0 as they travel to Baylor next weekend. This is a big-time football game. And to me, Mitch, it's also a little bit of a trap game because this feels a lot like that 2019 game, but the roles are reversed. Boise State is 2-3. They're having a setback year by Boise State standards. BYU's the top 10 team. And injuries are going to play a part on both sides, but BYU has got to be locked and loaded, and there's no indications that they won't be because they've shown that all season long. But hopefully BYU is ready to go because they're going to get a seriously motivated Boise State team later today.
They definitely are, and Boise is absolutely capable. They're 2-3 in this coming into this game, but they are a squad that has some explosive playmakers, like a guy like wide receiver Khalil Shakir, and they have a quarterback in Hank Bachmeier who is in his 3rd season with Boise State. But BYU has never played him yet. He's been injured in the previous 2 meetings that BYU has won, and there's a feeling around the Boise State program that Bachmeier is that next great signal caller for Boise State. We'll get an insider look on the Broncos coming up after the 11 o'clock hour once we get past that with Boise State voice Bob Beeler. So we'll get to know the foe a little bit more. But, Boise State is definitely capable. And I do believe this is a rivalry, Matt, and I think it's a good football game. This is the 10th consecutive year that these two teams are squaring off against one another. And I think it's one of those dynamics, too, for BYU. It's actually sometimes I think helpful. I asked Elisa Tuiaki this earlier in the week. Does it help to put together a game plan when you actually have data and reference points for an opponent? Because usually BYU faces a team and then they won't see them for 3 or 4 years. This is a setup where you know this personnel, you know the dynamics. There's just a little bit of new factor with that coaching staff, but BYU is very familiar with what Boise State does and vice versa.
And I'm glad you bring up that wide receiver for Boise State, Shakir, because BYU has allowed a couple of opponent receivers to go off against BYU. Now, it hasn't done damage in terms of really threatening a loss, but last week against Utah State, Devin Tompkins, one of the country's best wide receivers in terms of receiving yards, he had 9 catches, 125 yards, and a touchdown. And this Shakir fella for Boise State is the real deal. And if Boise State can't run the football, and we'll get into the weeds a little bit more as we wrap up this extended pregame coverage. We'll have 3 and Out to finish the show where we give you a stat, a player preview, a bold prediction. I mean, we'll dive into all of this, but Boise State is going to likely have to rely on the passing game, and hopefully BYU is ready. Their secondary has been banged up in recent weeks, but Shakir and Bachmeier, that is a problem for BYU this afternoon.
Yeah, and Shakir, it's interesting. He had his recruitment down to Boise State and BYU. BYU was one of the first schools to offer him. I think it was Fesi Satake, or if my memory serves me right, it was the previous staff. But BYU is very familiar with their personnel. They recruited a lot of these guys. Their top tackler, J.L. Skinner, a defensive secondary member, he's got 51 tackles. BYU offered him. They recruited him. So this coaching staff for BYU, they know the Boise personnel, and I think it's one of the advantages to facing an opponent every single year, and that's going to be something that's new in a couple years when BYU BYU goes to the Big 12 Conference, is just having that familiarity, that continuity of knowing what you're facing. Because with Independent, it's always been just every single week it's just a new opponent that they haven't seen in decades. This is a matchup where everyone knows each other, and I think BYU is the better football team. I think they got more talent, they got more depth. I think it's just a matter of, can they maintain that high level of play? Because it feels like the past couple weeks, at times, there's been stretches where BYU has played down to the inferior opponent.
Yeah, and we're still waiting, as the coaches have said, Mitch, for BYU to play a full game. We've seen the glimpses, that Arizona State second quarter where they just popped off. They've had moments that second quarter against Arizona, but they haven't put together that full game. And this kind of feels like with the injuries, Mitch, they're going to have to put together a full game if they want to handily beat a Boise State football team that, yeah, they've got 3 losses, but they're close losses against some good football teams. We'll take the break here. ABC News at the top of the hour, and then more BYU extended pregame here on the legacy home of the BYU Cougars, KSL News Radio.
Special KSL pregame coverage. Scouting the opponent. Mitch and Matt go behind the scenes of BYU's opponent to find out what to expect on KSL News Radio.
Welcome in. Game day here. BYU versus Boise State. We get to know the foe here on KSL News Radio, your legacy home of the BYU Cougars. Joining us now to get a insider look at Boise State football. It's the voice of the Broncos on the Bronco Radio Network. He is Bob Beeler. Bob, thanks for taking the time to join us here on game day.
You're welcome.
Excited for this matchup as always. It's one of the best matchups I think BYU plays every single year. It's a rivalry. But I got to say, Boise State comes into the game at 2-3. That's a different look than what we're used to from Boise State.
Yeah, it is. First time since 2001 that Boise State has been 2-3. I don't know. I draw a lot of parallels to this game to the 2019 game. You think about it, in 2019, it was Boise State that was undefeated. They were ranked 13th. They were 6-0. This year, BYU is 5-0 and ranked 10th. That year, BYU was 2-4. There was a lot of angst in the fan base, and BYU won that football game 28-25. And since then, counting that game, is 20-3 since that game. So roles are reversed, and I think both times, BYU in 2019 and Boise State this year, I think both teams are significantly better than 2-win squads. So we'll see maybe if history can repeat itself.
Bob, I was surprised in going through the game notes that Boise State, struggling to run the football, only averaging 1.1 rushing yards before contact. Why do you think the running game for the Broncos hasn't been able to hit its stride this season?
Well, I think one is the blocking. They've had some injuries in the offensive line. They've used 4 different combinations in the 5 games. I think maybe their best offensive lineman is certainly the guy in the middle that makes it work. Keikani Okoa-Holomalia Gonzalez has not played at all this season. They've had issues with snaps. They've had issues with protections. I think a lot of it is line. If you're only getting 1.1 yards before contact, I think that is more on the offensive line. Now, George Villani, who had 1,000 yards in 2019, was injured most of last year, has been injured a lot this year as well. He's by far the most elusive and has the most juice to run. So I think having him not be there for most of the season has also been a factor. But I think especially when you add that into the fact that the line has been a little bit, patchwork and not been consistent, I think those are the 2 reasons they haven't run the ball that well.
Great quarterback play is always a characteristic that I define Boise State football over the years. It just, you guys have always had excellent signal callers come through the program. Hank Bachmeier, it's his 3rd year at Boise, yet it's the first time BYU's facing him. He's been injured the past 2 years. How do you feel that this year has gone so far for Hank in this offense in year 3?
I think Hank's improvement has been tremendous. I think he's got playmakers at wide receiver. Last year, he basically had 1 in Khalil Shakir. This year, 2 guys that have really stepped up are Octavius Evans along with Steph Cobb. So I think that, he's got some guys on the outside that he can get the ball to that can make things happen. As you said, he hasn't played in either of the last 2 games that Boise State and BYU have faced each other. I think he's a guy that, has gotten better in each of the seasons. I think it was Pro Football Focus that rated all 130 FBS starting quarterbacks, and he was rated number 12. So I think that he is one of the better quarterbacks around. And guys, my recipe for a Boise State win today is that Bachmeier would throw for better than 300 yards and, get the ball to the wideouts. You mentioned the running game that struggled a little bit. The passing game has not. They've averaged over 300 yards passing, and I think to get the job done, he's going to have to throw for better than that.
We're still unsure who BYU starting quarterback is going to be. We're not going to probably find out until the start of the game later today. But what area defensively has Boise State excelled at so far in 2021?
I think the biggest thing they've excelled at has been forcing turnovers. Other than the Nevada game last week, they have really done a nice job. They forced 12 turnovers in their first 4 games. They got 0 against Nevada last week, and I think that really hurt them. That's something that I think has really jump-started. They've taken away the ball inside the opponent's red zone. They've taken it away and had a nice return, a couple of, defensive scores. So this is a team that has been able to use turnovers to their advantage. I also think they've done a nice job in the red zone. Opponents have only scored touchdowns 42% of the time they've gotten into the red zone. So I think those 2 things for me are the biggest areas where Boise State's defense has been tough. They've had trouble against the run this season. They've given up 100 yards to a running back in 4 of the 5 games. And when you look at Algier standing over on the other side of the field, I think trying to slow him down is going to be probably their greatest challenge.
Year 1 for Andy Avalos obviously hasn't gone as smooth as many people probably would have expected for Boise State football because, you know as well as anyone, Bob, the transition from coaches has always just been smooth dating back to Dirk Cutter for Boise State football. What made Andy Avalos such an attractive candidate when they hired him after Harsin left for Auburn?
Well, I think Andy Avalos is a guy that, just bleeds blue. I think he understands the program. He understands the culture. He was one of the top 30 players to ever play on the blue left, playing with 355 career tackles. He's been an assistant. He's been a defensive coordinator. He went to Oregon as defensive coordinator. Yeah, I think that a very popular and a very, good choice by Boise State. I think this year, when you look at the schedule that he inherited, I've been here 14 seasons as the voice, and I can't remember a year where I think the schedule has been more difficult. I think the best team Boise State has ever played is not on the schedule this year. I think it was the Virginia Tech team in 2010. But I think from top to bottom, you look at 3 non-conference games against BYU right now, undefeated and ranked 10th. Oklahoma State, they lost that game by 1, undefeated and ranked 12th. And then Central Florida, to start the season, they had Dylan Gabriel at the time, and now they're probably not as good because he's hurt. But, you tangle with those 3 teams in non-conference, and then you look at the teams Boise State draws out of the other division, the west side of the Mountain West. They draw the top 3 teams over there. Fresno State, they draw San Diego State, and they played Nevada already, and Nevada won the game. So, tough schedule has also been a challenge for Coach Avalos in his first season.
Yeah, you said in those games that they played, Oklahoma State was one of them, and I bring them up because they're in the Big 12. BYU's going to the Big 12 in 2023. What do you feel the future of this series is going to be? Because I know myself and Matt, we love this game. We think it's a game that's worth fighting for, and it should be something that's played annually. How does Boise State view the game, and do you think it's going to continue when BYU goes to the Big 12?
Well, you mentioned those 2. What about Central Florida? That's the 3rd one. So 3 teams that Boise State has non-conference this year are going to eventually be in the Big 12. I think that when you look at it, it's all going to come down to what BYU wants to do. They're the team that's changing league. They're the one that would have the out to get out of the non-conference schedule if they want to. If you're going into a conference, you're going to probably have to align either 8 or 9 games that you're going to have to set aside for conference. That means you're going to have anywhere from 3 or 4 non-conference games. What do they want to do with it? Do they want to play somebody every single year? Would that be Utah? Would that be Utah State? Would that be Boise State? Would they want to play all 3? Would they want to rotate? I think it will be very interesting. I think Boise State fans and team have enjoyed this game. I think one of the things that makes it a rivalry is that both teams have won, and both teams have won games in exciting fashion. So I think that when you get into a game and both sides think they have a chance to win, I think that's a really good rivalry where you play some people and like Boise State and Utah State, the Broncos have won 17 out of 18 games. I think there's a difference when the games kind of go back and forth. But I do think probably it's going to be on BYU to decide whether they want to keep it more so because they're the ones that are having to change their schedule.
All right, he is the voice of the Boise State Broncos. Bob Ehler, we really appreciate your time. Hopefully we'll see you sometime during the press box. But thanks for getting us ready to go with some insight on Boise State.
Thanks, guys.
Great stuff there from Bob Beeler here on pregame coverage of BYU and Boise State.
KSL's extended pregame coverage. BYU, Boise State.
Tyler shakes off a tackle and gets in for 6. Tyler Algier with a touchdown.
Listen at 102.7 FM in your car or tell Alexa, play KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to extended pregame coverage. BYU and Boise State. Been a great show so far. Harvey Unga joined us. Bob Beeler from Boise State joined us. We'll throw this all up on the podcast feed as you're driving into the stadium. If you missed any of it, you can replay that on our podcast feed. Right now, we want to continue to preview this matchup between the Broncos and the Cougars with a segment we do each and every week, 3 and Out.
3 and Out. A quick hit look at BYU's next opponent on the gridiron. It's 3 and Out on Cougar Sports Saturday.
We do this every single week during football year to get you ready for the big game. We'll give you a player to watch, a key stat, and a bold prediction along with our game predictions. And we'll start things off here on the program with First Down.
First Down.
My stat on first down, first down, we go with a stat to keep an eye on in this game. For me, it's 100%. And you're thinking, what does that entail? BYU is at 100% this season on fourth down conversions, Matt. I think that's notable because I think there's going to be times in this game in the second half where BYU will be faced with a tough decision whether to go for it or not on a fourth down. And I think that because this is going to be a tight game, I think in the second half. So BYU's got the confidence that, hey, game's on the line, you need to pick up a tough 4th and 2. They've got the personnel on offense to get that done.
For me, the number is 17. That represents Boise State's national ranking in passing offense. They can't run the football, but they sure can throw the football. Hank Bachmeier threw for 388 yards in the loss against Nevada, and BYU's pass defense, Mitch, is 98th in the country, so they got to find a way to slow down that Boise State pass attack.
Second down.
All right, this is a player to keep an eye on. I'm going to go with BYU for me, and it is Isaac Rex. Now, you might be wondering, where is the tight ends? Why isn't Rex more involved? Well, through the first 5 games of 2020, Mitch, he only had 7 catches and 1 touchdown. So he's ahead of pace right now. He has 8 catches on the year with 3 touchdowns through 5 games in the 2020 season. And I think he's going to be a key player in the pass attack. We'll have to see if Mason Wake can play, but they got to get the tight ends involved, and I think Rex is due for a big game.
I like that pick. For me, it's D'Angelo Mandel, cornerback, because Boise State's got one of the better passing attacks in all of college football, as you mentioned. So D'Lo Mandel, this is a big year. This is 4th year for him. He's a leader of this team. He's one of the additional captains for this program. So D'Lo has got a big test in front of him facing Khalil Shakir, the talented wide receiver for Boise State. But Mandel and this entire BYU secondary are much improved, and they're rewriting the narrative. Last week, they did a ton of man press. You always think BYU cornerbacks are going to go 7 yards off the line of scrimmage. That's not the case. D'Angelo Mandel will get up in the face of Khalil Shakir. That's going to be a great matchup to watch.
Third down.
Yeah, third down, we give you a bold prediction. BYU, Boise State, what's your bold take, Matt?
For me, I think BYU as a collective rushing unit will go for 300 yards. I think the weather plus Tyler Algier plus the Boise State rush defense, which isn't very good. They've struggled to stop people running all season long. Expect Tyler Algier to have a big game. Expect Lopini Katoa to get in on it. Maybe Jaron Hall. No, just kidding. If Jaron Hall plays, do not run the football. But I think
decision.
Yeah, game time decision for Jaron Hall. We'll find out probably in the next hour or so if he's going to go. But I like BYU's rushing attack to go for 300 yards or more.
Yeah, we're in lockstep here. My bold prediction is Tyler Algier will have another 200 yard rushing
back-to-back?
Yes, Tyler Algier is – I think this is a blossoming story in the national landscape. Earlier, just an hour ago, you hear Kirk Herbstreit saying BYU is one of the best stories in college football. At the center of it's going to be Tyler Algier. From walk-on to now star running back, one of the better running backs in college football. I think this is a big stage for him today.
All right, Mitch, your game predictions now. Do you like the Cougs to move to 6-0?
I do. BYU, I'm going to say score prediction, BYU 28, Boise State 20. I think this could be a one possession throughout. I think it's going to be close. BYU's offense is going to make those critical moving the chains plays and have some long drives. I think BYU's defense, though, will have a much improved performance, getting off the field on some third downs. That's going to be critical in this game, too.
For me, Mitch, I like BYU, but a little wider margin. I got BYU 31, Boise 17. I just think they are going to be too one-dimensional. BYU will force a couple turnovers, and they'll find a way to win this football game, setting up a big stage next week, BYU and Baylor down in Waco, Texas.
Got to take a break. On the other side, we'll put a bow on pregame as we count down to kickoff BYU and Boise State here on KSL News Radio.
Hear that? That's the sound of someone trying to steal your crypto. Every day, thousands of hackers online are doing the same. That's why Arculus uses air-gapped cold storage technology to protect your assets. Using our keycard and wallet app to form a protective barrier, Arculus insulates you from hackers and puts control of your digital assets back in your hands. Order the first truly air-gapped crypto wallet at getarculus.com.